So welcome back. I hope that you all had a great lunch, even if it did not go as speedily as you might have hoped. You may have noticed that the variety of items on your tables has changed slightly. We have added some items. We've added some barrier methods, which help us with safer sex practices. You're welcome to open them if you are curious, but please do be aware that the internal condoms are quite lubricated. We've put these out because it is time to talk about barriers. As you may imagine, the word barriers has many meanings related to both sexuality and to congregations. So first, we'll go with the most obvious meaning of safer sex barriers. The barriers on your tables protect against sexually transmitted infections, pregnancy, or both. Both internal and external condoms protect against both pregnancy and STIs, while dams afford protection only against STIs during oral sex, oral anal sex, and genital rubbing. So now I have a question for you. Who out there feels that your table has all of the variety of items that you might need? Anyone? That you might like to provide to your congregation or a group if you are offering up the variety of barriers for safer sex practices. Is there any table out there that feels that you've pretty much got it covered? And the lube is for comfort. Yes, the lube doesn't actually help with STI or pregnancy prevention. So what are you missing? What are you missing? Hands. Yeah, what are you missing? Male condoms. Oh, what have you got?
We have an internal female condom and a dental.
So we have one table with a female internal condom and a dental dam. What else? Who else is missing things? What? You're missing those. So what have you got? You've got male condoms and just male condoms? Oh, and some lube. Okay, male condoms and lube. Who else? All you have is a dental dam. Aww. Anyone else? So how common is it to find everything that you need in one selection? How many bowls of condoms have you seen, or bowls of barriers that have the full variety of barrier methods available? How common? That's an actual question. Not common. What was that? Rare. Yeah. They're more expensive. And assumed heterosexuality. So what is the most common? If you see a bowl of sexually safer devices available, barrier methods available, what do you see? Oh, the transgender, yeah, we've got some people holding them up. External male condoms. That's the most common thing. So how many of you are from congregations that make condoms available? Thank you. Take a look around. We've got at least, almost a dozen hands, 10 hands or so. How many of your congregations provide barriers other than external condoms? 3. Oh, and a half. 3.5 and a half. All right. But fewer than those who had provided some barrier methods at all. So we've provided an assortment for you. Now, granted, because they are expensive, we do not have every option at every table, as this was for demonstration purposes. However, we wanted to lift up the variety of both what is most commonly seen and the best practices. And I believe there was one table that had external male condoms, internal female condoms, dental dam, and lube. Was that? Yes. We knew there was one. So I'd like to invite you to take about 5 minutes with your table and discuss your feelings about providing safer sex barriers in your religious setting. What would that look like? And we invite you to refer to the questions on the screen. So as you process, What is your gut reaction to making free barriers available in your congregation? How might you feel about seeing a congregant access the bowl who is 14 years old, or 70 years old, or 35 years old? How might a project to provide barriers relate to your role as a religious educator? And how might barrier distribution relate to your congregation's mission, values, and culture? So we'll give you about 5 minutes to discuss at your tables, and then we'll lift up some highlights for the room. So as we were going through this, and if we can get our next slide up, we anticipated that you might discover the need for some messaging. And our wonderful UCC brothers and sisters have done just that. They, in fact, have packets available that you can see a picture of right on the slide that says, "Why give out condoms? It sends the right message." Sexuality is a gift from God to be shared with love and responsibility. Loving carefully is a moral responsibility. We affirm abstinence. It is always a viable choice. And when people choose to engage in sex, we affirm safer sexual behavior. So in the packets, it has this language that you see. It also has a kit that contains 2 condoms, which I believe they've had specially printed, that says, "God gave me sexuality" on it. And it also includes 2 samples of lubricant, an instruction card for the external condom, and message words in English and Spanish. Now, as we just discussed, this doesn't address our internal condoms or dental dams. So we are not advocating that this is a one-size-fits-all solution, but it sure is something. And we wanted to lift up the fantastic resource that they have created for us. And these packets are available that you can order, I believe, online, Melanie, from their website. The Health and Wholeness Advocacy Office of the United Church of Christ. And we will have, resource links available at the end, and this will all be online, where if you want to seek those out, we can certainly help you find them. So very quickly, we have 5 minutes, so we can take maybe 3 to 4 comments, depending on how long you take. Friends, can we get the mics? So what is it? What came up for you in your conversations? What are the concerns that you have? What are the barriers that you feel that you might encounter?
Well, hello? Hello? Okay. 2 things. Can we get a UU version of this with all of the accoutrement that should be included? And also maybe some guidance for having conversations in our congregations for providing something like this, where we anticipate there would be pushback.
My take on barriers and boundaries is that they're related. And so talking with our teens about having healthy boundaries and having freely available barriers of all kinds to people of all ages in our congregation is in integrity. Thank you.
I just wanted to share my personal experience. A number of years ago when I was living in a cooperative, this came up as a conversation of whether or not we wanted to have a bowl or a basket of protective barriers available in our living room. And for me at that time, I felt really uncomfortable with it, in the same way that in a private house, I wouldn't have a bowl or a basket full of condoms on display, that it feels like something private and personal to me. And right now, I feel really excited about the idea of having barriers available in our congregations. So holding that into perspective, our table talked about, were there ways that we could have barriers available in private spaces, like in a single-use bathroom, where it could be discreet and accessible, but would also respect the privacy that we want to have around sexuality.
Beautiful, and let's take one more comment here from Emmy, and then we're gonna move on, and we have one more set of questions that I think speaks directly to some of what we're already getting to.
Okay, I get to be that voice in the room. I'm okay with this to a point, and I have a problem, God help me, I have a problem with making, I understand, can you tell that I'm conflicted about this? I know 14-year-olds who have sex, who have had sex, right? And they couldn't get condoms. So I'm juggling that with, if you're not old enough or brave enough to go buy a condom or buy some form of, then you shouldn't be having sex. So I get all this, and I'm conflicted, so I just wanted to tell you that's where I am.
All right, thank you, Emmy, for lifting that up. And we've got some more questions for you in regard to, I think, what we're starting to get at, to the metaphorical barriers in our congregations, right? So what issues would arise or could arise when discussing this with your congregation's decision makers? What's the pushback? And I think some of it might be right along the lines of what Emmy was just lifting up. How can you challenge those barriers to providing barriers? See what we did there? And what constrains you in pushing against those metaphorical barriers? And finally, what can you learn or practice in order to be more comfortable addressing a sensitive issue like safer sex within your congregations? So I can give you a minute to think, and also if there's anyone who has any immediate thoughts, we are gonna try and keep ourselves moving this afternoon since we got a little bit of a late start. But we'd love to hear your thoughts on these questions. What comes up? Why is this hard? And how do you, as religious educators, deal with your own process, your own emotions, and bring this to your congregation and push against those perceived barriers or metaphorical barriers that might exist?
I'll just say these are tough questions for me because I'm not sure if it is my role as a religious educator to do this or not. So when I see this list of questions, I'm like, well, I'm still stuck on kind of the assumption in the questions that says the religious educator is the person who should be advocating and doing this. So I'm not sure.
Can I ask you a follow-up question, Tim?
No. Go ahead.
Who, if it's not you, who should it be?
Well, I'm not sure. And I'm not sure this is something I think our church should do. And so there's also that to it as well. But I don't know if this falls under my purview or if it should. I don't know. Maybe it's something more for like our pastoral care network to do.
All right. Beautiful. Thank you.
Following up on that, yeah, I'm not sure if it is my job, but my job as a religious educator is to bring this back to my congregation. You know, I foresee myself having a conversation with my minister about, because my first inclination is we have a Rainbow Rights Task Force, we have a Reproductive Justice Task Force, maybe this is their work to do, or to be in consultation with the staff team, or have the staff team talk about this as a larger, because it isn't super cut or dry. And the other thing that kept coming up for me is this a service to the congregation and limited within the scope of the congregation? Because our building is very busy and used often by other community, and shifting that lens to being, this is a service to the community, because I get what Emmy was saying about teens, but there's other people who are in our building all the time who this could very well serve. But then at the same point, is that sustainable? So those are points I was thinking about.
Yeah, beautiful.
I'm just thinking as someone who is sometimes in bathrooms in different places and has sometimes seen a basket that has condoms, tissues, tampons, pads in it, mints. And whenever I see something like that, I just feel like, okay, we all have bodies. And that's the message that it sends to me. And so in thinking about challenging barriers, I wonder if there's a way to connect it to the reality that we all have bodies in a wider sense.
Melanie.
I'm Robin Slaw from Columbia, Maryland, and we're one of the congregations that elected this year to provide condoms. We have 2 single-use bathrooms in our downstairs. We not only provide condoms, we do have tampons and pads, and we have signs up, please help yourself. We are in an interfaith center. We are one of 8 or 9 different congregations that's in our building, and we are also in the village center of the small village within Columbia. And so we provide condoms as a community service beyond our congregation. We've elected to do this. Our big barrier that we're facing this year is the cost, because we had about 150 condoms disappear in about a week and a half the first week that we put them out. And so now we're counting our condoms and tracking them weekly to find out how many. And we know, I've seen it, that the young people that hang out in our parking lot in the village center will come in and use the bathroom and leave again. And so I'm sure that we're providing a huge community service for free condoms. But the leadership team elected this year to go over budget so that we can find out what it will cost and provide this as a community service. And I'm really proud of them.
Are there any final comments before we move on? Yep, in the back.
When we were thinking about whose job this would be, I would invite someone from my Justice or Faith in Action, Living Our Faith committee with my minister to consider this type of project and to consider those that might not be there to speak. So, you know, we're looking at dental dams and female condoms. I think it's great to have those in the basket. And also just to respond to the person who is talking about a 14-year-old being afraid to go into a pharmacy. The flip side of that is class. And I have a 14-year-old, and if she doesn't have money, I would much rather her get a condom at our church than to not use a condom.
Beautiful, thank you. And thank you for engaging and grappling with this. We are not here to say absolutely, Tim, this is your job and you better go do it. That is not, but we want you to engage, right? Bring this back. Talk to your social justice teams. Talk to whoever it feels like is the right person in your congregation or right people. But we wanted to bring up this topic of discussion because we don't feel like it's talked about very much. So we want to thank you for grappling with this. And now that there are more in the room, we wanted to remind you all that once again, we are recording our afternoon session, so just so that you are all aware. And now I'm going to pass it on to Melanie.
So when we planned this day, we agreed that we wanted to give you a chance to reflect on how you want to be connected to others in your life, both your professional life and your personal life. So we're going to start by asking you to create 2 grids, and one grid will be called deal makers, and one will be called deal breakers. You can do this in your journal if you like. Probably need 2 pages, one for each grid. And Susan, can you? Oh, you did. Okay, so your grid doesn't have to be shaded like this, but this is just to show you. You're going to have 3 columns across. One will say intimate partner. That doesn't have to mean a sexual partner. It can be just somebody who's intimate with you. Family and friends in the center, and congregants. And that could also include other staff that you work with. So you're going to have one of those for deal makers and one for deal breakers. And the idea is that you're going to say, what are the things that you require in the deal makers, in the way that you're treated or the way you interact with people in those 3 different parts of your life? And then do the same for the deal breakers. What are the things that you absolutely will not tolerate in how you are treated by intimate partners, by family and friends, and by congregants and staff? So just start by drawing the grid and then start filling in the blanks, and we'll give you some time to do that.